Hello and welcome to the StartupBREW Fargo podcast. StartupBREW is a weekly event hosted by Emerging Prairie in downtown Fargo, where we believe that entrepreneurship is energized over brews. Each week, we bring entrepreneurs, founders, and innovators together because we believe they succeed when they have access to each other and the community that supports them. This week, we welcomed Renae Mitchell with juiceboxfargo and Alyssa Jones with Exit 44 Flowers and More. And to kick off the morning, we started with Joe Burgum, co-founder of the Red River Market, who shared the foundational story on how the Red River Market came to be.
Good morning, all. It's great to be here. I love being in Island Park. It's such a gem in our community. It's really fun to be here today to talk about the farmers market. It's fun to see so many faces that I know have come and enjoyed the Red River Market over the years. And Enrico's song is such a lovely, I think, love letter to what the farmers market has become. So myself, Simone, along with Megan Meardahl, Whitney Oxendahl, and Jody Regan, we're all just a group of friends 7.5 years ago. There was talk of a farmer's market in Fargo, and Simone and I had started to say, man, it'd be really cool if we had a farmer's market in Fargo. I'd been living in Seattle, and Simone had been living in Minneapolis, and we'd moved back. We were just thinking about things that we'd missed from these other communities and saying, we're not going to wait for Fargo to change. We want to create the city that we want to live in. Let's create the space that we want to live in as a community. And so we started talking about starting a farmer's market, and this other group of people said, well, we're thinking about starting a farmer's market. And I think it's easy when you have an idea to be really precious about that little growing seed of a thought and say, well, no, we're doing it this way and you're doing it that way. And we said, well, no, actually, this is going to be a lot of work. Let's join up. So the five of us got together and started talking about starting a farmer's market. And we started having conversations in the community saying, is this possible? Has it happened before? And there was a fair bit of skepticism. There was a lot of people that said, now is probably not the right time. Or, you should do it next year. There's not enough weeks before the summer starts. And granted, we maybe could have started planning a little bit earlier. It was about April, and we were starting a farmer's market. And so, but we said, we just got to get something out the door. We have to start small, and we have to start somewhere. And so a big part of our approach in general is the idea of being radical incrementalists. I think for those entrepreneurs in the room or those that are running businesses and going to share as market vendors, there's no such thing as an overnight success. You might hear it in the newspaper and it feels like an overnight success, but it's lots of little steps that get you there. And so in being a radical incrementalist, it also means having a really low bar at times in order to get going. And so when we started the farmers market, we said, what would success be like for our very first farmers market 7 years ago? We said, 8 vendors. If we could have 8 vendors, that would be awesome. And if we could have 500 people, that would be really cool. And so we just said, let's do that. First Saturday, we were on 2nd Avenue, where we're going to be this year, coming back. Well, opening day, we had 10 vendors and saw 800 people. So maybe an adage there in managing expectations as well. So we thought it was wonderful. But with something like a farmer's market, you can only grow as fast as the vendors. You can only grow as fast as a farmer. And so despite how much success there might be in that first season, there's a plant that went in the spring and a harvest in the fall. And that's sort of what you look at. And so every year since then, it's just slightly been growing. And I mentioned Rico's love letter because it's really amazing to see the community that's come around the farmers market. I think as the Folkways team, as Leslie is up here, Alex, the rest of us, Annie, our market manager, we really feel like stewards of something that's bigger than ourselves. This is really a public market for the community. And it's amazing to see entrepreneurs, small business owners, musicians, creatives be able to come to the farmers market and have it be a place to share their story, to grow their business, to connect. I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on, and it's hard to quantify in terms of the impact of our community, is what it does for the social fabric. I think the last 18 months has been incredibly challenging as we think about seeing friends and waving and smiling faces, and how do you have that spontaneous interaction within community. But something like the farmers market is so important to be able to have that consistent spontaneity. You can come every week and there's something different, but you can see the same people. And so when we hear stories of people that say, I was moving to Fargo and my spouse wasn't so sure, trailing spouse, I had a great job, I really needed to sell them on coming to Fargo, and the first thing we did was come to the farmer's market, and now we've lived here for 4 years. Those are the types of things that I think get us up in the morning to say this is so much more than just a farmer's market. This is really about a community and a space for people to belong. So excited to hear from our entrepreneurs today, and thanks for coming out, and hope you all can join us on opening day this Saturday.
Next up, we hear from Renae with juiceboxfargo, who began her entrepreneurial journey with the hope that she could build a career that would fit both her and her lifestyle. In 2018, she went back to school to become a nutritional therapy practitioner, which she later combined with her passion for juicing, leading her to juiceboxfargo. Let's listen in to learn more.
Thank you for having me. juiceboxfargo was created from a vision that I had a little over 2 years ago that came at me so strong there was no way I could possibly ignore it. You see, back in 2018, I decided to reinvent myself professionally. I went back to school to be a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I wanted to start a business. And the important things were I wanted a business with my passion in health and wellness, my desire to help people to heal from the inside out, and what could be most important is to have a business that I could do with my 2 teenage kids alongside of me. But I had no idea what that business looked like. So I started asking myself, simple question every morning, what gets me excited to get out of bed? Now, when I started asking myself that question, I really didn't know how to answer it. But I kept asking it. And finally, I answered juicing. You see, juicing had been a part of my life for a couple of years at that point. It was a big component in bringing my health back to a vibrant state. I managed to run it into the ground, starting my second business. And it was my morning meditation. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved cutting up the fruits and vegetables. I loved how I felt when I did it. But I thought to myself, good grief, Renae, what are you going to do? Start a juice bar? That's ridiculous. But I kept asking myself that question. And slowly, little by little, I started answering with a little bit more passion, a little bit more conviction, and a little bit more belief in the possibilities. And finally, one day, I had this vision, and it was this little lime green trailer with these pots of beautiful flowers and hanging baskets of fruits and vegetables, and my daughter and I wearing these cute little matching aprons, serving juices and smoothies at the Red River Market. Whoa, like, where did this come from? I ran to my kitchen table, I grabbed some colored pencils, I sketched out this vision, and I could completely see it come to life. I was like, wow, like, I have to do this. So I set off, I designed this trailer, my dad built it for me. My kitchen became this mad science test experiment. I still have juice splatters on my ceiling to this day. And I was off and running. And opening market came July 2019. And what this vision did not prepare me for was how utterly and completely exhausted I would be after that first full day in the kitchen. I had no idea how labor intensive cold pressed juicing would be. I remember sitting there that night, and my sister, God bless her, she came to help me, and she was just like, don't worry, like, we'll figure out what we need to do to make next week more streamlined. And I'm like, next week? I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to get through the next 5 minutes. I was so tired. It was a tired that I've never experienced before. But opening market came, and we sold out within an hour and a half left to go. And all of that tiredness and stress and anxiety and fatigue melted away. And all I could think of was, how am I going to make next week even better? I was hooked. The 2019 Red River Market season was amazing. I chose the market to launch my business because it was my happy place. Like Joe said, I mean, it's an amazing place. And I knew that that's where my people were at. I had no idea if Fargo had, if there was a market for $8 a bottle cold pressed juice. And I knew that's where I needed to be. And so what the vision also didn't prepare me for was life post Red River Market. Couple that with not being able to get my vegetables locally. I was not only not making money, but I was losing money. And I was like, how's this going to work? I had to sit down and have a conversation with myself. And I'm like, you know, there are plenty of Red River Market vendors that have full-time jobs. They do this as their side hustle. Like, is this what it's going to have to be? But I knew with every core of my being that this was meant to be something so much more than the Red River Market. So I kept going. And I started doing 1 and 3 day cleanse packages where all you have is water and juice for 3 days. That went over really well. We went into the winter Red River Market at the Moorhead Center Mall. That went really well. I'm thinking 2020 is going to be my year. Like, I could feel it. Come March, The spring Red River Market is set to be at the West Acres Mall. I had just put $1,000 of produce in the cooler. I'm like, this is going to be amazing. Start juicing. Another market vendor comes into the kitchen. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what? Juicing. And she's like, the market's been canceled. And I was like, oh my goodness. I have to tell you guys, I crashed in the hardest way. I felt every emotion under the sun. I felt fear, anxiety, panic, nobody had any idea what COVID was going to do at that point in time. And I just let myself experience all of the emotions. And then all of a sudden, I heard this voice in my head that I heard a million times when I was a kid. It was my mom. My mom's kind of a hard ass. And she's like, put on your big girl panties, Renae, and figure it out, because nobody's going to figure it out for you. And so that's what I did. I put on the full armor of God, and I decided at that moment in time that I was never going to allow fear to dictate any decisions I made personally or professionally. So I pivoted. I figured out a new business model that would work. We started doing pop-ups out of the kitchen. We started doing Sonic-style curbside pickups. People would order, they would text their name, I would come out, I'd bring their juice to them. It worked really well. I also positioned myself to be more of a health and wellness company, educating people out of how to take care of their immune system. We are spiritual beings living in physical bodies. We have to address everything. I will never claim that juicing is going to be everything. It's just a piece of the puzzle. And 2020 was actually an amazing year. I have a closer relationship with my kids, and I'm so glad that my daughter got out of bed this morning for this. I have a closer relationship with my kids than I've ever had, and it ended up being a great year. And we've gotten to the point where we have maxed out our space at the shared commercial kitchen, and we have decided to take the leap. Our little tiny green trailer is now going to turn into a 1,350 square foot brick and mortar. We're going to be west of Cheyenne High School. We're opening in November, and I am so excited. And thank you. And none of this would be possible without the Red River Market. I have said over and over that having the ability to have this amazing space, and I've been to lots of farmers markets around the country, and you guys, not only is the Red River Market it's top notch, but it is a magical place. And so I want to thank Joe and Simone and all of the rest of them for creating that. And I also want to thank, and I'm so glad that you came, Paul Smith with the North Dakota Small Business Development Center. Financials is not my thing, you guys. Juicing is my thing. Numbers, they make me go. So I am so grateful for him and the people that he works with for being able to break that down for me and help me. And so thank you for coming today, Paul. And thank you for listening, and I look forward to all of your questions.
Next up, Alyssa Jones with Exit 44 Flowers and More took the stage and shared her story on what led her to becoming a flower farmer. From growing her own wedding flowers to selling her perennial and annual flowers at the market every week, Alyssa has an awesome story to tell. Let's listen in.
Hi, everyone. Alyssa. So the dream kind of started 6 years ago. My husband and I got a farmstead about 25 miles south of town. It was completely overgrown. And I'm like, no, there's potential here. I loved it out there. I grew up in town in an apartment.
Is it?
So it was really just eye-opening, and I loved the space completely. And each year we kind of worked on cleaning it up, found things that flowers would just pop up out of nowhere, just cleaning up piles. And it was quite the task, but we managed to get there every year. We started adding berry bushes, and also got some trees through the Soil Conservation Society. Just to build up what we had there. I was like, this is going to be my retirement plan here. I'm going to get it going and figure out something to do with the space. And then fast forward to my husband and myself, our wedding, I decided I'm going to grow the flowers. And we had perennials that were established on the property, and we I was like, okay, those bloom about the time that the wedding's going to be. So that winter, I dove into YouTube and books and figured out how I was going to grow flowers for the wedding. Planning a wedding, working full-time, and growing flowers. That's a lot. But I did it. It worked out perfect. I timed out everything exactly how it should have been. I had my sunflowers. I had my Heliopsis come up at the time. Wedding was beautiful. Nobody could believe that I actually grew the flowers. I was like, my plan was if it didn't work, I was just going to go get baby's breath and just call it a day. Like that's it. That was my plan. And then from there, I was thinking over the next year, like, this property, I still want to do something with it, but what? So I started searching on YouTube and found out flower farming was a thing. I did not know. It turns out there's started to be a movement of flower farmers. I found out that 80% of the flowers that are in the U.S. are actually imported from South America. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then did some more research, and I was like, okay, so I want to start a flower farm. What now? And then my husband actually reached out to Jen from Family Roots Farm and was like, hey, you know anything? And she introduced us to the farm's internship. And I was like, well, I'll apply. I don't know if I'll get in. Like, I thought this was more of like a college kid kind of a thing. And I'm 30. We'll see. And a couple of months later, I was accepted and at Jen's farm, which is 3 miles down the road from me. And from there, I learned about sustainable agriculture, multiple practices, met different farmers, met different communities, got to tour some places like Bear Creek Winery. That's great. So is the wine. And then I worked with Jen, and Jen, oh my gosh, she's such a hard worker. And I just lived the day in the life, learning how to balance family and doing the farm. And it was a wonderful experience. I'm like, yep, this is where I'm going. I'm going to do this. So over the winter, started planning, buying seeds, all the seeds, seed shortages. What? That's not okay. And then just working on setting up my property for this venture. We took over some farmland in front of our house. I was nervous because there was corn in the field in the fall, and I was like, is it going to be like last year where they couldn't get to the corn? Am I going to be able to make this happen? Corn came up. I'm like, okay, we're going. And then my husband reached out to one of his friends and explained to him like what we had going on. And he was like, hey, I have a few buddies and they want to be in on farmers market too. And I'm like, well, my first year, their first year, let's team up together. So now it's me and 3 guys. I've got flowers. One of the guys has veggies, another guy has mushrooms, and then another guy does wood decor. And that's where we're at. And I'm excited for market this year. Nervous, of course. Like, the weather could cooperate just a little bit better. All right. Thank you, guys.
After the presentations, we opened up to a live Q&A session with the audience. And today we were joined by our host, Leslie Ann Bugle, who is the marketing and programming coordinator for the Red River Market. Let's listen in.
We're going to start the Q&A portion. So raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll call on you, and then you can shout it out so that everyone can hear it. So the first question that we like to ask you guys is, what are you most proud of in the last year with your business? Starting with Renae.
I guess for me, it would be, like Joe says, it's so much bigger than, the market. It's so much bigger than that. And I loved being able to be a light to so many people. And I would have people message me like, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. And just being able to witness to them and to help empower them and just let them know that,
we have these amazing immune systems. They're capable of handling so much, and just being able to, inspire people and make it.
We made
2020
it.
was all about adapting and changing.
Nice. Alyssa?
Getting things in the ground. That's I'm there. It's coming. The flowers are blooming. I'm like, yes, okay.
Absolutely.
I have things.
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions from the audience? And we'll also be taking questions on Twitter. If you tweet at StartupBREW, Emma is going to be monitoring that, and she'll shout out when we have a question. So what is an advantage and what is a disadvantage of owning a business in our region?
I would say that the advantage is, like Joe said, the Red River Market, you have such a large amount of people coming to this space in such a short amount of time. And so it was relatively easy to start a business, being able to work out of a shared commercial kitchen, have this amazing venue, and, it's low cost. And I'm not sure that you would be able to do that in other markets. A disadvantage for me is produce, I'm not gonna lie, I'd love to live in an area where I could just go to the farmer's market every day, and like I said in my talk, nothing could have prepared me for winter produce prices. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Like she said, the community is number one. I was excited last year when people actually bought my bouquets at Jen's booth. I was like, oh, I sold one. That's great. And then the disadvantage, I'm reliant on the weather at the end of the day, and it's been a tough season so far. My sprinklers can only do so much, and we really needed the rain, and I'm happy that it rained yesterday. I'm like, yes, keep coming.
Yes, Alex.
So, question for both of you, and I think you already alluded to it, but can you share with us some of the resources available to support you as an entrepreneur? I heard you talking about Paul Smith. I mean, some of those readily available resources for entrepreneurs.
I work out of a kitchen that has some amazing people in it. That's one of the biggest things I'm going to miss about moving to a brick and mortar, is that I have this amazing community with the Red River Market where we all support each other, but also Square One Kitchen is another amazing community. And Casey Steele, the owner, she's incredible, you guys. Like, she has mentored me through so much. It's just having that base. And then I'm just going to be the first to admit that there are days where I have no idea what I'm doing, but I surround myself with people that do. And I have, I know a lot of you guys are entrepreneurs and you probably think you have the best customers, but no, really, I do. And they come up and they're like, we want to support you. Like, how can we help you? But yeah, the small business center is great. Joe also is a great source to point you in the right direction. But networking and just getting to know the community would be my advice.
I would say Farms has been excellent. They've reached out to me and told me how proud they are of where I am, and they have multiple courses, if you want to call it that. They have the internship, they have just a Farmer Dreams program where they kind of like give you a little run through, and then they have another program which is helps you through like the business side of things. And then Nick Lair, he's another good resource. He introduced me to the other guys that we're working with, and I'm super excited.
Yes.
It's kind of a follow-up to Alex's question. And first of all, if people look up Farms, it's with 2 R's, right?
Yes, it is 2 R's.
Farms, it's 2 R's. So Renae, I understand what Paul does, but maybe for the sake of other people, can you explain like what that process was for him as you were looking, I think, at the brick and mortar, why you vote up Paul and he would help you kind of figure some of those next steps out?
What I'm doing is requiring a decent amount of money. And so my realtor, who works for Kilbourne, she had referred me to a bank, and the bank had referred me to Paul. So, and I think you had also referred me to Paul as well. And so he helped me after sitting down, one-on-one, and basically started creating this business plan, doing future projections and models, and he helped make it super easy. When I sat down and I think I had said to my banker, I'm like, okay, a business plan being written on a cocktail napkin versus a 40-page document. Like, what are you looking for? And it's overwhelming. And he helped break it down super easy. And, we're in the process of getting all of that to go through. And I'd say just make an appointment. He's super easy to talk to, super easy to work with, and just will help it become a manageable task.
Yes.
I'm curious as to being a vendor with that market. What is the dynamic and the relationship with other vendors in the market in terms of how that drives your business or partnerships or that kind of competition at a public market?
I don't know if you'd call it fortunate, but I really don't have any direct competition. So I've never really felt like anybody has wanted to stand in my way, so to speak. But even if I did have direct competition, it's such a great, we're all rooting for each other, because, if we're not all succeeding, that none of us are succeeding. So, and like I said, there's a lot of Red River Market vendors that work out of the kitchen that I do. And I remember Jeremiah with Off the Deck. He was there on the first day, and he was just major cheer. He's a big guy, and he's just cheerleading me on. He's like, you can do it. Like, you've got this. Like, you got this. And so we're all just supporting each other. Like, whether it's just giving us that words of encouragement, because we've all been there. Like,
Right.
it's hard. It's hard work.
It's definitely hard work.
Yeah.
And there were times last year where we weren't sure like what to price something at, so you just go up to another vendor, hey, what do you have this at? Like, what is what does it look like? Is mine better, or a little less than what they've got? And you kind of go from there. I know when I first brought my first bouquets, I was like, I have no idea what to charge. I don't know. So I went over to Ladybug Acres, who had a few ready bouquets, and I was like, how much are you charging? She's like, well, I'm doing 7, but you have way more, so you should do 10. And I was like, okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I love to see all the vendors trading food at the end of the day. It makes me hungry, and then I'm like, I'm gonna go get some food too.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Yep.
Traded bouquets for food. That was
Good
Yeah.
idea.
And shout out to Rico. He has, he bolted. I wanted to give him a big hug. I miss him. But he has the most amazing plantain cups. Oh my gosh. So good.
Yeah, his plantains are delicious.
Yes.
Questions from the audience. Oh, anything from Twitter?
Yes, so we did get a question on Twitter from Randy Schatz, which says, "A flower farm sounds amazing!" ! Can we drive by to check the fields? If so, where is it located?
We are currently not open to the public at this time. I actually do have goals in the future to do pick your own, and eventually wholesale once I can narrow down what I want to do. I want to grow all the things. So hopefully in the next couple of years we will see, but I am located at exit 44.
No one would have guessed.
Crazy.
We can take one more question from the audience. Yes.
What's the scope of your operation? Are you just talking square footage, or are we talking acres?
Well, right now I've got some square footage established perennial beds, but I took about 2 acres from the farm in front of our property, and I'm growing about 1 acre there, and my plan is to eventually scale up to the full 6 that are in front of the house.
Great. So for the final,
Bouquet over there if anybody
everyone look at the bouquet. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So for our final question, we like to ask, what is one thing that we can all do to help energize and support your work?
Shop local.
Absolutely. Red River Market opener is this Saturday. I hope you guys all attend the markets and financially contribute to them as well. And obviously check us out when we open up our store. Fall of this year, probably November.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That's all we have for this week's StartupBREW Fargo. Thanks for listening in. StartupBREW Fargo is energized by Emerging Prairie, an organization dedicated to connecting and celebrating the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We'd also like to thank the following sponsors for their support: Pro Resources, Brady Mertz, the FMCVB, Office Sign Company, Fargo Parks, and Midco. See you next time.